Well, welcome to today's webinar on Is Your HA Solution a Bad Fit? And how we can help you transition from your existing location or use software to Robot HA. We're excited to be with you. This is yet another webinar from Help Systems, and we look forward to answering your questions. Certainly as we go through today's technology using GoToWebinar, you can ask questions by using the question tab inside of the software. Or certainly you can try to use chat. There will be handouts from this, and this is a recorded event. We've got some great presenters with us. Let's first of all introduce Mr. Ash Giddens. Mr. Ash Giddens, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Tom. Very well, thank you.
And what do you do for Help Systems?
Well, I'm based out of the UK office, and I am a pre-sale specialist, focusing mainly on the power side. And as we were just chatting in the preamble, I sit on the Common Europe Advisory Council, which is a group of about a dozen individuals in Europe who get to meet IBM face-to-face 2 or 3 times a year and help steer direction of the wonderful platform.
Well, thank you, Ash, for joining us. Look forward to hearing your expertise on high availability. And Mark Almacher, what do you do for Help Systems?
Hi, after 25 years or 25 plus years as a customer using the robot products and also high availability from a competitor's product, I joined Help Systems about 3 years ago, and I help install the robot products, including Robot HA.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, Mark, and we did enjoy having you as a customer too, and lured your way over to Help Systems. And then I'm Tom Huntington, our Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions. I am a IBM Power Champion. I've been that for the last 4 years now, and help customers with everything Help Systems, and one of my areas of expertise being high availability, HA, journaling, that kind of thing. I've been working with those technologies for quite some time. Let's roll into our agenda, and why would you want to switch, first of all, from your current HA solution? How does the transition work? We do call it a transition versus a conversion, and there's a little difference when you think about it. And then, of course, how can Mark's team help, and how does our services help you out? So one of the things that we know is high on everybody's mind is high availability. And we know that because of our annual marketplace survey that we do around the IBM I platform. We did this survey back in 2018 and presented the results throughout the year of 2019. And by the way, we have a new one coming out, and we'll have that posted sometime in the early January period for 2020. But high availability was certainly high on everybody's mind, and it's not that people don't have high availability today. I think there's a lot of people too that are just looking at easier solutions and looking for something different to help them out, maybe make their role swap easier, that kind of thing. Ash, what are you seeing in Europe market? What are you hearing about?
Yeah, a couple of strands really in Europe. We're seeing first-hand evidence of, let's just call them smaller IBM I shops, maybe looking at HA for the first time. I don't know, maybe it's always been cost prohibitive previously, or like a number of proof of concepts I'm currently working on, the business has changed, and the reliance on IBM I and coupled with availability demands has maybe ignited interest. So we have that strand. Also pairing solutions. So people may be using Power HA or some kind of hardware replication in the data center, and using a logical replication to get that data out of the building into the cloud or to another data center.
Yeah, those are all good reasons. I'm seeing that too in smaller clients, because all of a sudden IBM I has become more and more important to them. From the survey, we say about 50% of the market has high availability today, or 49% to be precise, have high availability solutions. I think that number is increasing as more people are becoming more reliant on IBM I. Mark, any thoughts on what you're seeing around HA?
Yeah, really things that have maybe been in the way of people doing this before is price.
Okay.
A lot of the products in the field were very pricey, complexity, and then, the bottom line is the resources available, and that's mostly people resources.
Yeah, so that's a great point, having services like we have to help them out and help them get started and train their new staffs. And some people have had turnover too, right? People have retired on them, and the person who knew the previous solution is gone, and it was very complicated, and that's all they did was manage the HA solution for looking for something simpler, right? So
Absolutely.
the other thing we see is that there are quite a few that are upgrading their IBM I platform, their hardware and their software. You might be going to 7.3, 7.4, of course, now out since June of 21st of 2019. So, over, 40, let's see, we had 42% of the marketplace that's actually upgrading hardware and software. And with that, we often find change in other technologies. And so this is maybe a good time here in the later half of 2019, early part of 2020, off to our next decade, guys. Hard to believe that that's just around the corner. So we have our first polling question. I'm going to open it up and let's see what you're using today for solutions. And let's see, launch my poll right now. We should see that up on your end. Which IBM I high availability solution are you using today? Believe it or not, we allow you to be able to click on multiple solutions. And we did break out some of the sync sort solutions. They are certainly the #1 provider out there, have been for a while. Mimix and Iteria and Quick EDDI are all part of the sync sort solution. Actually, there's another solution, OMS ODS. I've completely forgot about that. People might have that solution. Maxava or Rocket iCluster, not the same company, but GoToMeeting only allows us to ask 2 or 5 polling questions. You might be using SAM-based replication or Power HA. I'll leave this polling question open a little bit longer. As I said, we have another webinar coming on Thursday. If you're interested in high availability, you're probably also interested in backup and recovery. We have a BRMS backup and recovery introduction 101 type session coming Thursday via webinar via Common. Is actually promoting that for us. So look forward to having you there. That's about an hour-long webinar. Today's is only a half an hour. Well, I kind of suspected that a majority of you would have the Mimix solutions. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results on that. No surprise at all. So thank you for answering that polling question 100% with Mimix, guys, which is kind of what we were probably expecting to show up today. So why would you consider, or why would you want to transition or switch to Robot HA? Ash, let's turn this over to you to talk about that transition and what people might be looking for.
Yeah, sure. There's a number of reasons here, and we've plucked out, I guess, the most common ones. So, but the first statement here really scares me, but it's something I hear from probably, I guess, close to 50% of customers. So customers have a HA solution, and they've either never conducted a role swap, or they have what's called like a loose tentative plans to do so at some stage in the future. And I'm sure that if the key stakeholders in the business were aware that a HA solution had been purchased, but you're not using it for its intended purpose, they wouldn't be happy. And I know I used to work for an MSP. We used to look after a number of large customers, and we used to do a role swap of one of our customers' boxes every week. And at the time, yeah, it was slightly extreme, but what that did instill was that it's just another operations task. There are some steps to do. It didn't become this big thing in the corner that everybody avoided and everybody made sure they weren't on shift for. It was just another task or a set of tasks. Some of the other things in here, I know some solutions only have a DR version, so maybe they don't have that role swapping capability. Hand-holding, daily care and feeding, Tom.
Yes.
I see this a lot as well. In fact, I've seen a white paper from one HA vendor that talks about hand-holding or daily care being required for around 30 minutes per day. And I nearly fell off my chair when I read this. This is far too much. If you multiply that out, that ends up being nearly 4 working weeks a year. I'm sure that the checks that are performed manually can be streamlined or better still, automated.
Right.
Performance, although performance, I guess, is cheaper now than it probably ever has been, some HA solutions can consume a lot of CPU. If that continues to grow, hey, at some stage you're going to impact the response times seen and experienced by the user community. What else have we got in here? Ongoing costs can be high. Now, maintenance costs for most software applications, including HA solutions, tends to be around the 20% mark. So you're thinking about this, in effect, you're repurchasing that product every 5 years. So just something to think about there. And I guess finally, we don't have a tool other than backups. So hey, tapes are fine. A lot of people are now using VTLs, but hey, maybe it's time to step up another gear and look at a HA solution.
Yeah, you know, and I focus in on automation and think about, you know, our own robot schedule helps a lot of HA customers automate the automation or automate the manual processes around HA. And so by transitioning over to robot HA, now you're dealing with one vendor helping you do your HA and your automation. So thank you for taking care of that, Ash. You know, as we look at robot HA and what makes it unique, one of the things that I think of is the fact that the product was put together after remote journaling came to the IBM I platform, which we think, oh, that's new. Well, not really. It's 2 decades old. So, you know, but the product doesn't have the legacy that some of the older products have, where they're still doing things inside the product that existed before remote journaling existed. And so with Robot HA, it's really good at object distribution, and then it came out with the local and remote journaling technology. And that makes it very much so more efficient in that regard. And then the other thing is that when objects change on the system, for the most part, we're using the save change object API to pick up on net new objects. So if IBM over the years changed that process so that as objects change, they have an internal table that they use so that you don't spend a whole lot of time when you do save change object to pick up on new objects. And so very much so more efficient than reading the audit journal all the time for object changes. So that's that area. Ash, back to you to talk a little bit about the performance and care and feeding a little further.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, we've worked with a number of customers and have actually observed this themselves with their own analysis that some HA tools can consume 15 to 30% of processing power. And just saying that out loud just now, it just sounds wrong to me. You know, that's an awful lot of processing power. At the same time, Tom mentioned a number of solutions have a huge reliance on QORGerm, the auditing journal obviously built into the operating system. QORGerm was never designed for this purpose. As the name denotes, it's a auditing journal, and your HA solutions should really use it, I think, as infrequently as possible. It's not designed for it. You could lead to some bottlenecks if you've got the volume of transactions. I also hear a lot about audits when I talk to customers. And while I understand that there's a need for periodic auditing of what you have on source and target machines, this shouldn't be a constant thing. You know, this shouldn't be a burden, and your HA solution itself shouldn't be a burden on yours and your team's time. It should really look after itself the majority of the time. You know, we're 2019 coming up to 2020. We shouldn't be doing all these manual tasks. If any problems are detected within the solution, in my mind, it should come and tap you on the shoulder and tell you, hey, there's a problem that I can't recover from. You shouldn't need to go looking for these problems. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up that slide, Tom.
Yeah, Ash, you know, it becomes almost more important. The audits almost become more important than the actual HA process itself and role swapping and all those things when I talk to a lot of existing customers.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, not to underimply their need, but you know, it shouldn't be the main thing that you're doing. It seems that way.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the transition and how this works. So what we've done is we just recently shipped a new version of Robot HA that's going to help walk you through, we call it a transition process versus a conversion process. Very similar and maybe splitting hairs here, but what we want you to be able to do is a proof of concept so you can load Robot HA alongside your existing tool. Our support team will help you get started with that, and then you just start replicating things that you need to replicate. Now, with that, though, of course, you can't be replicating the same thing. So what the transition process does is it looks at your current rules and mimics. It moves those rules over to a work area, and then allows you to switch over to Robot HA one rule at a time if you want, versus the Big Bang approach. And then you can move the rest as you become more comfortable, and then you're fully switching over to Robot HA at that point in time. Of course, we can set up the monitoring. We have a built-in audit and notification process inside the product, so it's self-healing. And then, of course, with Robot or Halcyon monitoring solutions, we can monitor and take care of that process for you too, which many of you have done. So to give you a little more detail, what we've done is we built in some commands into Robot HA, a sub-menu within the product that will take a look at your current object setup, generate a report, because part of what we see for libraries that are defined and IFS that are defined is people have made mistakes. They've been doing things the same way, and some of the rules are not appropriately put in place. So we'll print out those rules. Then we can extract those rules to a temporary holding area outside of Robot HA, a work area, and then we can review those rules, and then one by one, we have an option inside the software to take and transition those rules from the system and extract those rules and put them into the Robot HA library sync attributes. And so this is done from a menu system, again, through a series of commands. We can extract the library rules and the HA rules from those temporary holding areas. And then as we do this, we can turn on the syncing process so that now Robot HA is controlling the process of replicating that particular library or that particular set of directories. I've been doing a lot of talking on this, Mark. Anything you would like to add to this? What are some questions you usually get around this kind of transition process?
Yeah, really the questions come about, how are we going to do it, and or how is the customer going to do it, and we are here to help. That's the bottom line. We have some customers that transition slowly and do a certain subset of data at a time. We have other customers that choose the Big Bang approach and just take an outage on a weekend and switch over completely from a competitor's product to our product. And that is really, that's sometimes the easiest way because we don't always have to re-replicate all the data again.
Mm-hmm. Can I use existing journals and stuff like that? That's usually one of the questions I get.
Absolutely. Yep. Now, a lot of customers choose not to use our competitors' journals. They want to make a clean break and just put everything into our journals. But if there's existing journals over your data that are application specific,
right,
you can absolutely use those journals.
Yeah, we see a lot of that in the banking industry, right? So,
correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So back to you, Ash, to talk a little bit about the benefits of the transition approach.
Thank you, Tom. So with companies now dependent on system availability, having downtime, even in your HA solution, we find is often a no-no. It's a non-starter. With the transition that Tom and Mark have talked about, we can take your existing configuration and migrate it from your current solution to Robot HA piece by piece, allowing you to check and migrate the configuration as you go. And this really avoids what we call the Big Bang approach in turning off one solution and turning off another, which can be understandably scary. I'd be scared of it. Equally as frightening can be the steep learning curve attributed to implementing new solutions. Again, by using the transition at your pace, you can control this process at a speed you and your team are comfortable with before eventually turning off your old solution. Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
So yeah, a little overview. Tom mentioned this, but Robot HA is a mature product. It's built on remote journaling, which, as you know, is part of the operating system and has been for a number of years now. Super efficient, and you can replicate as much or as little as you like. We've got some customers using this just to replicate a subset of data libraries over to a development partition. We've got others replicating pretty much everything. So this will be DB2 objects, libraries, IFS, system-related items such as config, system values, authorization lists. All of that can be done. Distance is not a problem. We've done lots of work with managed service providers who have targets in the cloud, also with cloud providers out there, such as our friends at SkyTap. Tom mentioned as well, we use a Safe Change Object API to detect changes to objects and new objects. Super efficient. And it's also been benchmarked to be able to handle in excess of 188 million journal transactions per hour. And these, I think these were done on Power 7 boxes, so probably a lot quicker now. Role swaps. We tend to start with a what we call a test while active. This is normally our first port of call. Role swaps can be scary, as we've mentioned, but it's possible to test the role swap while users are still using the production box, using test while active. In effect, this simulates a failure. The key thing is the production workload and the users using the production box are not impacted. It was really designed to help verify that you could bring up applications and do business on your target server. Helps minimize disruption, and is normally, I think, as Mark will back me up, as really as a precursor to performing a full role swap.
Absolutely, it's kind of a stepping stone.
Yeah, it's nice to get that comfort factor. And then we go into the, I guess, what we call the traditional role swap. Again, distance, no limit. Role swaps can be done interactively or in batch. And when I first started playing with the software, I wanted it to be interactive. I wanted to see what happens. And then once you have trust in the solution, hey, you just fire them off and let them run in batch. And remember, role swaps and the ability to role swap is what the business has paid for. They've paid for a highly available application.
Right. You know, the other part of that too is that you probably have some existing scripts that you've been using with your current supplier. We can piggyback on top of that and even make it more automated. That's really kind of what our expertise is, and we'd love to help you out in making that process simpler. Often we see way too many manual processes or steps taking place in the current role swaps. All right, let's talk about how our services can help you out. And with that, we're going to bring back Mr. Mark Onmacher. Again, Mark, I know you talked a little bit earlier about what you do for help systems, but maybe you can kind of repeat that kind of quickly.
Sure. So, customer for many years, but when I joined on, I was very excited that I came on board about the same time that the Robot HA product came on board, and very excited to be a part of that development of that product. As far as the implementation goes. But basically, we install the product. We help our customers install, configure, do training, and really take them all the way to steady state.
Okay. So how does the services handle the transition then from other products? I know you've been involved in a few of those, so yep. Any tips on that?
Yeah, so it's basically about coming in and understanding your environment first, and then tailoring the plan for the customer, the individual customers. Everybody's environment is different. So, when are your outage windows? Are they in the middle of the week? Like if you're a hospital, sometimes I think theirs are on Wednesday nights versus a banking industry like would be during the weekend. So it's really understanding your environment and tailoring a plan for that individual customer.
Business does matter, right? So what are some common problems that you've seen with customers?
Well, it's just determining the outage window. That's probably the biggest one, is when are we going to do this? So fitting this project in with the many other, business projects that are going on. This is generally just an IT project until a role swap is performed and the business is brought in again. So it's when can this be prioritized, and if there's an outage needed, when can that outage happen?
Yeah. What should customers do to prepare for this process?
The biggest thing, Tom, is cleaning up your existing environment. So not only getting rid of any obsolete objects that are out there, but really going through your current HA solution and cleaning up things in there. If there's old replication groups or whatever that aren't needed, then get rid of that stuff so that when we transition it's a lot tighter.
Okay, excellent, good point. So, I mean, with services, some things come along with that. What do you talk about when you do basic training on the product?
So, basic training, it's going through all the menu options and getting a good understanding of what the product does and where to find things. And the basis of a whole implementation, not only just the training, but is to take you all the way through the role swap activities. So I believe that some customers, like Ash said, they don't leave you hanging, but they don't push for the final result. We really push for the final result. We want to do role swaps. We are comfortable doing role swaps, and we want the customers to all be comfortable doing role swaps too.
Yeah. So I know you don't have time to go through every one of these steps, but what are some of the important things for pre-installation planning discussions with your customers?
You bet. Maybe the top three are defining objectives of the whole project. The second one may be discussing items to be included or omitted, so applications that need to be included or omitted from replication. And probably the third thing is discussing operational activities like backups and startup procedures. So just having a good understanding of what the customer is facing on a day-to-day basis.
And then the actual product installation and initial implementation, again, what are some highlights from this list?
You bet. Basically setting up the product, defining the sync attributes. We call our definition sync attributes. Getting things replicating. So that's always an exciting point, getting that done. And then the last thing is performing a role swap while active. That we'd like to have that as part of that initial implementation.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. And you guys will get copies of these handouts, so you'll be able to see that. Let's move on to our last poll question here, and just kind of ask you, how can Help Systems help you with high availability? If you don't mind, you can select multiple of these. So we're looking for general advice on HA. We're on, oops, I got to launch that. Sorry about that. We're looking for general advice on HA. We're unhappy with our existing HA solution. We need to plug the gaps in some of our other current HA strategies that we're having. We're considering moving to logical replication. We're also considering moving to hardware-based replication. So if you don't know, Help Systems works on Power HA too, and we certainly have expertise and people that we can point to in the industry that can help you out with Power HA implementations too. So let's have you take a few moments and answer that polling question. We're really excited just to kind of summarize what we're doing today is we have a process inside of Robot HA that will help convert you out of the Mimics solution right into Robot HA, and we call it a transition process because we really want to look at it. And a lot of it depends upon the size of your implementation. Mark mentioned that we have some customers that just do everything over a weekend, but if you're a larger environment, you're going to want to go slow. We've been in this business way too long, and we, not way too long, I say long enough that we've learned a lot of hard lessons along the way, and we want to make sure that you are doing things properly. So, and all right, well, thank you for answering that polling question, and we do thank you for filling that out. And let's kind of wrap things up. And today, a very short webinar, we talked about how we can help you switch over and what the transition process looks like, and how our services can help. Just to kind of remind you, Help Systems is certainly in the business of automating computer systems, but we help you with scheduling, performance, monitoring, HA now, backup and recovery, and also capacity planning with the Performance Navigator solution inside the robot solution. So it's very exciting to work with you. We also can review your HA process, as Mark talked about. And we also have what we call disaster recovery as a service, where we can replicate your on-premise solution into the cloud and replicate to that environment. So with that said, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask questions via the question toolbar inside of the GoToWebinar. While we wait for some questions to come in, Ash, any other perspective from the European marketplace when it comes to HA?
No, I don't think so, Tom, other than that it seems to be very active at the moment. When we first acquired this solution back 3 years ago, which we've been developing, in my head, I imagined everybody that needed HA would have HA, but it's far from the truth. Very, very busy with high availability.
Yeah, I would agree. I would echo the same here in the IBM North America market. Mark, from your end, any other thoughts or things that you hear often when it comes to specifically maybe the Mimics product?
No, there's always a little bit of apprehension because the customers may have had Mimics for a long time, but they are open to new solutions, and we're ready to help them do the transition.
Awesome. Well, without that, I guess we don't have any additional questions, but we will follow up with you. We appreciate you joining us today. You all have a wonderful day, and hard to believe it's November, only 2 months left in the 2019 year, and then off to 2020. Make it a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us today on yet another webinar from Help Systems. Thank you both.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.